The other day, I put up a poll asking my audience which version of Classic WoW they're playing. The results were quite surprising to say the least. It turns out the top choice was that people are not playing Classic WoW at all. A whopping 40% of people said they've stepped away from the game entirely. 33 are playing Cataclysm Classic, 15...
And that's also like, this is people that are like voting in a WoW poll. That's a lot. Yikes,
playing
yeah.
Season of Discovery, and just 12 are still on Classic Era. So yes, we're seeing a huge population drop. But it's not exactly shocking. We always knew that by the time Cata Classic came around, interest in Classic WoW would wane. Cata isn't the cup of tea for many Classic WoW players. The ethos...
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Like, Cataclysm to me is like not really... It's not really Classic, and also, I'm gonna give like maybe a casual take. It's too hard. It's like the raids are too hard. I can't just like make a raid with some guys and just go get the loot. Like it's super complex. There's a bunch of mechanics. It's not. It is. It's too hard. Yeah, I mean, no pickup groups. Yeah, you can't make pickup groups. It's like too punishing. Yeah, I just get good. I already did. Like, I mean, I have all cutting edge. I have the Sinestra Immortal achievement. I just don't want to do it because it's cumbersome and punishing and it wastes too much time. Sorry.
The Classic WoW player is simple. Log in, slay some dragons with your friends, have a few beers, and score some loot. Rinse and repeat next week. Cataclysm still offers that experience, but the content isn't as casual friendly as it used to be.
Exactly, it's too hard. He's totally right. Yep, it's not casual friendly at all. This is way too hard for average players. Classic Andes are brain dead zombies. You can't expect them to move. Okay, so you can't be on the side of a Nyxia, but then you can't be behind a Nyxia, but you can't be in front. Well, where do you go? Like, I mean, because if I'm not, okay, so where would I be in a Nyxia? Oh, God. I've got a headache. Guys, I got to go lay down.
When you compare the heroic difficulties to Ulduar hard modes. Also, a significant chunk of the original Classic audience also love the old school leveling zones, rich with exploration and non-linear quest lines. But with Cataclysm's revamp of Azeroth, that
it's just like retail.
is lost for some players.
Cataclysm is retail WoW.
By the way guys, if you're still leveling up your character at Alts in Season of Discovery, Cataclysm or Era, be sure to check out the Rustic Spear add-on, the fastest leveling add-on that you can get, created by world record holding speed levelers. You can find the download link to that in the description.
Yeah, somebody says, get good, okay, have fun when the game is shut down because no one's playing it except for a few good players. That's the way it is for me. Like, for me, it's like if a game... If getting good in a game isn't fun, then why would I want to get good? Think about it like that. Why would I want to be good at this? It's just not fun. Like, it's annoying. And also, like, if the game isn't rewarding and it doesn't feel good to improve in, then why would I want to spend my time doing it? Is ego is more important than fun? Yeah, like, I'm not like that at all. Like, I don't care. That's whatever. I used to be like that.
When the Discovery launched, it drew a staggering number of players, just under 500,000 logs. That's Wrath Classic level engagement. At peak times, you could easily see over 300 group requests on the LFG add-on on the highest population servers. But now SOD only has about half of its original population. Clearly, something went wrong. I've already made a whole video diving into the details, but to sum it up, SOD became everything Classic WoW players...
SOD became retail. That's the reason why. And I got so much shit when I first heard the announcements at BlizzCon and I said this was going to happen. Everybody was shitting on me, but I was right.
Spies about retail. The current lineup of Classic WoW products just isn't hitting the mark for most players. Since the beginning of Classic, we've had a hardcore to semi-hardcore player base, much larger than people realise. These are the kind of players who won't cancel a raid night to attend their own child's piano recital. You know, the true heroes of World of Warcraft. Depending on your server, casual guilds are definitely in the minority on Cataclysm Classic, which you can easily see.
Well, the reason why casual guilds are in the minority is because you can't be casual. The raids are too hard. This happened in original Cataclysm. Like how many of you guys were in like a server in Wrath of the Lich King, and everybody was doing pugs in Wrath, And then Kata comes out, it's too hard, nobody's doing pugs anymore. Because the raids are too punishing. And that's what happened in original Classic, or original Kata, is I remember, like, I had all these pugs, and, like, we had this massive pug culture on Kel'Thuzad. Kata comes out, it's so fucking hard that we just can't do it in a pug. And then all those people that were raiding, because you've got to keep in mind, a lot of people don't have time to raid more than, like, once a week, and they can't even do that on a schedule. That's why GDKPs were great. And, like, you know, organized pugs were great. And now, if it's so hard, you just can't make any progress. Dragon Soul wasn't too bad. Yeah, but that was like way later on. It's not hard? It absolutely is hard. What are you talking about? It's not hard? Are you stupid? It's absolutely hard.
By checking out the server discords. And honestly, that's fine. This is exactly what Cataclysm Classic was designed to be, and it stayed true to that vision.
Yeah.
If it made Classic Cataclysm easier, it would have alienated its core audience. Over the past 4 years, Classic WoW has cultivated a more hardcore community.
No, it has not. Oh my god. This is the most not true thing that I've ever heard. And let me explain why. Because what happens is that this is what's happened with retail WoW also. Is that what ends up happening is the red line here, these are the serious hardcore players. And these are the average players. And it is true that the average players get better over time, but the rate of their improvement is extremely low. Because, for example, a new player coming into Classic WoW, for example, only has to take a couple of steps to be skilled enough to be in Molten Core. But a new player now coming into Classic Cataclysm now has to take 50 steps to be better in, like, Heroic BWL or something like that. So what happens is that the gap between good players and average players gets wider because the average players stay the same because they're rotating around and you're always getting new players without a bunch of experience. And the hardcore players keep getting better because they keep playing the game longer. So whenever you start designing for this group of people, you get retail WoW. And when you design for this group of people, you have Classic WoW. And that's what the difference is. So yes, you're right that there's a lot of people that like talking about how they like hard fights in Classic, but there's not a surprise to me. It's not a surprise to me at all that the reason why Hardcore WoW and the time that Hardcore WoW started popping off was whenever Old War came out. I don't think that was a coincidence, guys. I just don't. Sorry. I think there's a very good reason for that. It's not about difficulty. It's also about time investment. Exactly. Yeah, you could run Nax and it takes 2 hours at the most, right? For most like really good guilds. If you're running BWL and all those raids, it probably takes longer. Old War's peak MMO rating. Yeah, but it also caused people to quit. You just explained wealth inequality? Well, there are a lot of differences. Like, this graph explains a lot of human, like, deviations, right? It explains a lot of it. So that's the reason why. So the idea that they should keep making the game harder to appeal to people that keep getting better, the only thing that does is it makes it harder for new players to become those players. And you see that with Classic Era. You will always find, like, hardcore players will always find ways to make games more challenging on their own. Like, you know, speedrunning, for example. Like in Classic WoW, it wasn't about clearing the raid, it was about clearing the raid quickly. You raise the skill floor so much, some people just don't even want to reach it. And then they quit. So poor equals dumb? Yes.
Sure, with some exceptions, the game has been too easy for a lot of players.
It's not.
Which is smart to create.
Those are just the outspoken, loud players on social media that should be representative of 1% of the population, 10% at the absolute most. You should absolutely never design for them. The reason why Elden Ring is such a brilliant game is the fact that they had 7, 6, 5, I don't know how many other games that they had made before then. Bloodborne, Sekiro, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. They could have designed Elden Ring to be the pinnacle of an accomplishment and made every boss as hard as Millennia. They didn't, and they made it accessible because they knew that that's what the audience wanted, because they understand what people really want. That's Classic WoW too. Yeah, Armored Core, also an easy game. Yes, Elden Ring tutorial game for Souls, exactly. Yeah, that's not the way it works. Never appeal, never, ever, ever listen to the hyper hardcore audience of games, because if you do, you will kill your game.
More challenging content, but there's still a significant portion of Classic WoW's audience who prefer
They don't know what they want.
Raiding experience. Season of Discovery was delivering that until Sunken Temple, which had an end boss more difficult to kill than Donald Trump.
No. Good one.
This is a major reason why so many...
Well, that's another example, right? Is that the first time that they added a hard boss into WoW, people stopped raiding. People don't want to raid. They don't want to do hard bosses. Like, they're not playing Classic WoW to be challenged. They're playing Classic WoW to get cool gear and to work towards a goal. This whole idea that, like, you have these, like, super sweaty hardcore players that are trying to make WoW some sort of, like, esport, it's so exhausting. It's so exhausting, man. Like, just stop it. Just play. Like, if you want to play an esport, play Valorant. But these people, I'm going to be honest, they're garbage. They'd never be able to handle it in a real competitive game. So they play an MMO instead. You think a lot of these, like, rank 1 players in, like, these other games can go and play Valorant or League of Legends at a challenger level? Absolutely not. They'll never be that good. That's just the truth.
Walked away from Classic WoW. It just doesn't have that same...
Big L take. It's not an L take at all. It's true. You want to know why I know it's true? I'll explain exactly why it's true. Because if they could, they would. You really think that WoW players, these, like, super serious WoW players, want to sit there and stream to, like, 100 people, making barely any money, trying to sell account sharing services on the side? Do you think that if they could, they would just go over and play League of Legends and make hundreds of thousands of dollars? You really think that they would do that? They wouldn't do that? Come on, think about it. It's because they can't. That's the reason. They can't. They can't compete in a real competitive game. So they have to take casual games and make them competitive and ruin the game in the process. They're not good enough. Yeah.
Appeal as it once did. In a recent interview, Blizzard explained that Season of Discovery was meant to be very experimental. Some things work great and others not so much. I'm almost inclined to give Blizzard a pass on this one. It's important to try new features and see what sticks. The lead developer even mentioned they were hesitant to label SOD as Classic Plus because getting it wrong could have led to major disappointment.
Sure,
Fair enough. There's a lot
right.
riding on Classic Plus. It has to be perfect because realistically it is the future of Classic WoW.
Yeah, it is.
Mr. Pandaria Classic, that's not the future.
Nobody
that's
gives
exactly
a shit.
what the most of a Classic audience don't want. But some of the features they added to Season of Discovery were doomed from the start. Like a take.
Exactly. Somebody says there's a difference about than PvP and Raiders. You guys must have forgot when... how many of you guys have seen people that were like WoW players? And this happened a lot in MOBAs. Is that a lot of WoW players tried to move over and play MOBAs and stream MOBAs. And these were like rank 1 players. But they weren't good enough. They just simply weren't good enough. And so nobody watched them. That's it. They try, and they weren't good enough. Point and click are boring? Yeah, that's it. Like who? Well, I'm not going to name names. Yeah, these people, they did try to play other games. They couldn't.
That member trying to start a solo career when your name isn't Robbie Williams. Nightmare incursions, overcomplicating classes with too many abilities, and making the raids excessively difficult, these were brainless decisions that could only been made from developers that really don't get Classic WoW.
He's right about this. Yeah, a lot of their decisions for Classic WoW have been bad.
Hopefully, after losing over 1 million subscribers, they finally learned that lesson. Well, this is what concerns me about the Classic dev team. Do they truly understand Classic WoW? Do they play enough to understand what players want? Are they familiar with other old-school MMOs and why their communities remain loyal even when their games are so different from modern MMOs like Retail WoW? Do they get why Retail WoW isn't growing, hasn't for years, and probably never will? Can they pass the old...
Yeah, the game's just, it's played out. I think that really Blizzard doesn't understand that friction inside of Classic WoW makes it Classic WoW. And they think that they're improving the game by removing the friction, when the friction is what made it special to begin with.
Cool MMO vibe check. Honestly, I think before anyone can join the Classic WoW dev team, they should have to prove that they've
Yeah, it's the same as like, yeah, they put difficulty levels into Molten Core. Like, I really like the Classic WoW team. I think that they do a good job communicating with the community. But I do think that they fundamentally misunderstand some of the main principles of Classic WoW and why it's popular. I think that they don't really get it, even though they are probably... the Classic WoW team is better than it ever has been, but it's not good enough to iterate on Classic WoW in a way that is an improvement.
At least 10 days playtime on their account in Classic. That should be a minimum requirement. It's painfully clear that some members of the Classic WoW dev team are just going through the motions, with very little passion or interest in Classic.
I disagree with that. I actually think that Agrand and that woman, I think her name is Nora, and a lot of the Classic WoW team, I find them to be tremendously passionate about the game. I actually don't think that they're just showing up to work at all. Like, nobody tells Agrand he has to write manifestos about the fucking game on, like, Twitter. Nobody says that. So I don't think it's that they're not passionate. I think it's that they're listening to the wrong kinds of feedback and they're not valuing the right types of feedback. That's the problem.
Features introduced in Seasonal Discovery make it obvious that whoever is calling the shots is completely out of touch with what the Classic WoW audience actually wants. Unfortunately, this is the harsh reality of game development. When a new studio is trying to make a name for itself, they're driven by determination and passion, but once a company has been established for a few years, that fire often fades. Every game developer seems to have their peak. Blizzard with Wrath of the Lich King, Bethesda with Skyrim, CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3, and then it's...
No. Like, look at Rockstar. Look at From Software. Look at Capcom. Look at, what do you call it? Look at Riot. No, there's a lot of, and also, Cyberpunk is insane now. It had a bad release, yeah. But the expansion was insane.
Just all downhill from there. And bringing in new talent won't necessarily fix this, because the current climate of the video game industry is one where people are more likely to leave it than to join it.
Yeah, no, he's right about that. Now, I will say that Cyberpunk is good. In my opinion, I played part of The Witcher, and I played part of Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is way better. I think it is. Maybe I didn't get far enough into The Witcher, but that's what my opinion is right now.
When you consider the future of Classic Plus is in the hands of Blizzard and the current Classic WoW dev team, it's hard to not feel uneasy, especially with the news that Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft, or whatever the hell this corporate monstrosity they're called now, is unionizing. Now, I'm not against worker unions. Blizzard is probably the perfect example of a company that needs one.
Yeah.
But the downside is that bad developers who have no idea what they're doing might end up sticking around longer than they really should.
I would agree with you if that wasn't already happening. I think that's been happening for too long. Yeah, this has been going on for a while.
A lot of Classic players are now left with nothing to play, and let's not forget that Season of Discovery is just getting started. It still has to go through every single phase of raid releases at Endgame, which is going to take at least a year.
Yeah, sure.
What a Classic player is supposed to do for a whole year without a solid MMO to dive into? Sure, people will always come back to WoW, but Blizzard risks losing chunks of their subscriber base to other
Look at this guy. This is the average Classic player. You might not have noticed this because you're, maybe not like a serious WoW player, but after he did Concussive Blow, he backpedaled away in order to bandage.
Blizzard risks losing chunks.
See that? That's your average player. That's it.
Subscriber base to other MMOs in the meantime. For now, many Classic players might have to accept their fate as an MMO refugee. I've already met plenty of people in other MMOs who admit they're WoW refugees. Maybe there's a silver lining here. Perhaps some players will discover an MMO they end up liking more than WoW, but the truth is, if Blizzard want Classic WoW to return to its former glory, they need to take some serious action, and fast. But anyway guys, my name is MetaGoblin. Until my next video, ciao.
I think Season of Discovery is cooked. I do. I think that they've made too many changes that are too transformative, and it will... I want to do the raids, but, to me, the fact that they added difficulty levels to the raids, I am out. I have no intention, really, of raiding in difficulty levels. I think they're silly. It's ridiculous. Like that to me is like not classic WoW. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, it's like classics turning into retail. Yeah, I guess so. It's not really difficulty levels. It's just one. Heat 1 is just story mode. No, it's a difficulty level because you can go in there and the difficulty is different for each level. That makes it a difficulty level. No, just stop it. I don't care what your reasoning is. I just don't. It's immersion breaking. Yeah, it's ridiculous. People get the same gear. It doesn't matter. I don't want to deal with it. No, that's not classic WoW. It's not real. And maybe I'm being a classic Andy for this. But like that's what I think. Yeah, we don't want to run multiple versions. Yeah, I don't. Like it's not for me, man. Not for me. Classic Andy? Well, hey, I mean, hey, I'm sorry. I'm a classic Andy, and I want classic to be like like it's for me. Oh, oops. Oh, wow. Yeah, they're making it for classic Andys. That's the whole fucking point. Oh, you're not making Season of Discovery for classic Andys. What the fuck are you making it for? Jesus.